Hello, everybody. E here. Hello, KP. Hey, Alec. Yeah, I ain't seen you in forever. How you been? If you're still here. If you still here. This stuff is amazing. Not a sponsor. But this Blackberry Dr. Pepper. If you like Dr. Pepper and you like Blackberry, this is the way to go. Anyways, okay. If you're new around here, we are reading from my newest book, The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flamin' Fortune. We have done the first 2 chapters. All the chapters are basically novella to novel length with subchapters and all that good stuff. You know, if you're a Stephen King fan, you're familiar with it. These books are so long that I put intermissions in here, but the intermissions are just as important as all the rest of it. It's just tying together loose sections and wrapping things up before we move on with the story. So we are, if you're following along at home, we are on page 157 of the first edition paperback, and we're reading about 24 pages today. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Can y'all hear me all right? Everybody? Testing. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 4. Testing. Can thou hear me? Can thou hear me? You must bounce on it crazy style. Testing. Oh, okay. Well, I can see my little thing going up. Pause. Yeah, I summoned Derek with my little thing. Pause, double pause, triple pause. All right. All right. Let's jump into this. All right. Some of y'all will recognize this epigraph. Train roll on down the line, won't you? Please take me far away. Now I feel the wind blow outside my door. Means I'm leaving my woman at home. Alan Collins and Ron Van Zant. Tuesday's gone. Hey, Nick. Come on in. Let me read to you. All right. First intermission. The show must go on. Outside, a light that only exists in winter, revealed by skeletal branches, nakedly reaching, bereft of leaves, a balance not here when nature thrives, allowing us to see the forest despite the trees. The Cortez family circus collected people and things like a great rolling ball of tape. Father Time took over the financial side of things after Uncle Jaime's untimely death, and Mother Nurture stepped in as the circus's new ringmaster. Knuckles brought up the idea of an attraction wherein he would sit and let people gawp at him for 50 cents a head. Mother Nurture, concerned about his mental well-being after his metamorphosis, at first refused. She said because she didn't feel right, using his appearance to make money. But when Knuckles asked her sincerely, "What else am I gonna do, Mother?" she folded. "Come see the Lizard Man" was added to the bill, and the train rolled on. In West Virginia, a strong man by the name of Jake the Bull Bullinger joined the circus. He said because he had nothing keeping him in his hometown and nothing to lose. He proved his worth by picking up the front of Father Time's Hudson as if the car weighed no more than a feather. "Watch the man bull lift the world" was added to the bill, and the train rolled on. In Maine, Father Time purchased a Ferris wheel from a defunct carnival whose bankrupt owner sold to them for $2,000 even. Hank trained to operate it, taking to the behemoth of rotating steel and swaying gondolas like a calf to a teat. "The closest you'll get to heaven on earth, the Ferris wheel," was added to the bill, and the train rolled on. Knuckles' one-man show gained popularity as word of mouth spread. Specialists the world over attended his showings, and he was amiable with them all, allowing their close-up inspections of his skin, his eyes, his bifurcated tongue, and he grinned madly when they touted, "He's real, by God! He's real!" The Lizard Man's stage grew as his celebrity increased, and soon enough, his booth was replaced by his very own tent. Jake the Bull Bullinger left the big top to join Knuckles, and the first seeds of something that would grow out of control in the coming years were planted and watered and given love. During this time, Marianne asked to retire from her tightrope gig to open her own booth, Lady Quill, medium extraordinaire. Seeing this as a natural evolution of Marianne's talents, Mother Nature agreed, and Lady Quill was given her own booth, tarot readings at 10 cents a head. The circus thrived, but it was becoming apparent that their beloved circus was no longer a circus. With Uncle Jaime's death, the monarchy of the Cortez family carnival was replaced with a democracy of satellite installments, each attraction ran by their respective owners, and Mother Nature willingly relinquished control. Seeing her family thrive and gain an audience outside of the big top brought her nothing but joy, and Father Time supported her throughout it all. Then, in Michigan, Mother Nature came across a pair of performers on a street corner. Music, tunes, pronounced tunes, or more aptly, we suppose, tunes. There's a little wordplay there that doesn't really carry over in audiobook. And his partner, Panties, the chimp. And everything changed. The setup was simple. A chimpanzee on a bar stool behind a stack of milk crates, on top of which sat a royal typewriter. Tunes played Barker, calling to passers-by, offering the spectacle of an ape with the ability to turn the spoken word into the written. For the low, low fee of 25 cents, Panties here will record on his typewriter whatever words you speak. One sentence, 25 cents, and 10 cents for every line after that. You can't beat that deal with a stick, and why would you? Mother Nature, in town running errands for necessities such as food and toiletries, stopped to watch the show, her mind reeling with possibilities before Panties had typed even his first word. A small crowd gathered around her, mostly children, for it was just past noon on a Saturday and school was still more than a day away. Yet a handful of adults lingered as well, each one seduced by music, tunes, and his chimpanzee's amazing talents. Mother Nature dropped a $50 in the chicory tin Tunes was using as a donation bucket, and Tunes bellowed, "We have our first customer!" Tunes leaned in with the practiced air of a true showman and added, "Tell us, miss, what can we write for you?" "The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain," she said. "Too easy. Panties, write the lady's words for us, won't you?" Panties got to work, his crooked fingers pecking away, only the index fingers, mind you, tap, tap, tapping the 9-word lyric. When he finished, the chimp leaped from sitting to standing on his stool, tore the paper from the spool, and held the page aloft for Mother Nature's inspection. Now that he was standing, Mother Nature could see where he'd gotten his name. A pair of fancy underwear covered his crotch, red with white lace, French in design, and expensive to boot, she knew. The chimp was most certainly a he, given the view of the bulging silk material, which she blushingly snatched her gaze from to look at the words on the page. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Perfect spelling and proper punctuation. But surely this was all a gag, an illusion, although she'd not taken her eyes off the chimp while he wrote and had no clue as to how he'd pulled it off. Then, like a dam breaking, memories of Chuko and his ability to communicate, albeit solely in Mandarin, flooded in. The lady paid a $50 and is still owed a sentence or 3. What else can we write for you, miss? You two wouldn't happen to want a job, would you? She asked, before she realized she'd intended to. I own a traveling show, and we'd love to have you. Toons eyed her suspiciously, while Panties respooled the paper into the royal. His fingers clicked away, while Toons stared, eyes squinted, sizing up Mother Nature. A moment later, Panties ripped the sheet from the typewriter and held it aloft for all and sundry to see. You two wouldn't happen to want a job, would you? I run a traveling show and we'd love to have you. Then a line of words, double spaced, below that. We'll think about it. Toons read along with Mother Nurture, his suspicion dwindling with every word, until he grinned widely and said, We'll be in touch. Are you in town all weekend? Mother Nurture, seeing she'd been addressing the wrong performer this entire time, said to Panties, We will be. We're at the Saginaw County Fairgrounds until Monday morning. I'd love to sit down and discuss a partnership. Lovely. Perhaps we can come to a mutually profitable agreement at that time, eh, Panties? But for now, the show must go on. You there, child. Do you have 25 cents to spend? Saturday evening show went off without a hitch, as did Sunday's, and then Monday morning came around, and there was still no sign of Toons and Panties. The circus packed up their bags, as it were, and hit the road, as it were, off to their next location, Chicago, Illinois. But Mother Nurture never forgot about Panties the chimp, and as the years flew by and her circus grew and grew, she would find herself wishing to return to Michigan, to that isolated street corner and the wonders it held. Meanwhile, something was happening in the greenhouse car. Father Time's time had grown in abundance, as had Mother Nurture's marijuana, and, unbeknownst to either of them, roots were blending, becoming one system. Mother Nurture's weed took on the fragrance of Father Time's time, and the potency of said weed grew stronger. Buds of thyme sprouted on the marijuana leaves, and dishes made with the thyme got whoever ate them stoned. After several years, no one could tell the difference between the thyme and the weed. The plants had become something new entirely, a hybrid thing, the likes of which would never be experienced by anyone outside of the Cortez family circus. Speaking of that name, it was to change 4 years before an Austrian dictator would come to power in Germany. Trucks were purchased to help transport the circus and its ever-expanding rides and attractions, all of which grew in tandem with Mother Nature and Father Time's potent strain of herby marijuana. For one, they were no longer simply a circus. They were now, technically, a carnival with a geek show, food booths, a tarot reader, and a Ferris wheel. So the Cortez family circus became the Cortez family carnival, and the train, along with a fleet of trucks, rolled on. Rebranding occurred over a 3-month period, and more emphasis was placed on Knuckles' Geek Show, resulting in Knuckles and Bull adding more performers to the lineup. A dwarf named Warren Claymore, with a talent for sword swallowing, made all the more impressive by the fact that the swords he swallowed were twice as long as he was tall. A fire breather named Rebecca Blaze Bailey, who required no flammable liquids to fuel the flames she spit, and eventually Peter himself, now known as Paper, the living canvas, with the aid of his sister's beautiful mercurial artwork, which had come to cover him from head to foot. Thus, the Big Top was repurposed to house the Geek Show, and the Cortez family circus name was retired. From the ashes, the phoenix that would become the Cortez family carnival rose, bright and beautiful and bursting with wonders to entertain America. Father Time kept the books, always maintaining black where there had once been so much red. He found he had a knack for numbers and business previously unrevealed to him. The carnival prospered under his talent for accounting, and his family no longer solely existed. They thrived. Payroll was managed diligently, and new acquisitions were paid for without the need of bank loans. Father Time despised even the notion of credit. Debt wasn't something he saw a need for. His mother, God rest Myrtle Waycott's soul, would have been bursting with pride over this fact. If his carnival didn't have the money for something, they did without it, and he never used more than 30% of profits to add to the show, keeping enough petty cash on hand to cover any surprise expenses that should arise. Furthermore, he never trusted institutions with their earnings. All cash, of which there was an overabundance by 1929, was stored in a safe they had added to the caboose. After Uncle Jaime's death, no one had moved into his old cabin car, and, nowadays, the space was used for office work and bookkeeping. All interviews of prospective hires were held within the caboose, as were the rare disciplinary actions, of which there had been two. The theft of a purse from a geek show attendee, resulting in the termination of the young carnival laborer who'd committed the crime, after one of the tent men had seen the boy fleeing the tent with the purse in his possession, and an incident concerning Johnny Sandoval. The former is of no importance going forward, but we shall discuss the latter in detail. Johnny Sandoval had lived the mundane life of a functioning alcoholic until the summer of 1930, when his body finally had enough of him poisoning it. One hot night, with temperatures that reached in excess of 100 during the day and dropped to a cool 93 after dark, Hank found Sandoval unconscious and unresponsive inside the sweltering confines of the conductor's beloved engine. Hank rallied the troops, and three of the tent men helped Hank carry Sandoval, his body limp in their capable hands, to Mother Nurture's cabin car. "What's wrong with him?" Marianne called as she entered on the heels of Hank and his trio of tent men. Her face was haggard, aged by worry, and she still wore her silken robes and gem tiara from the night's performance. "We don't know. I found him like this," Hank said. Mother Nurture cleared throw pillows from her uncle's old sofa, the only items she'd allowed to be removed from the caboose after his death, and bid the tent men lay Sandoval down. They did so with the utmost care, handling the rag doll he'd become with the tentative nature of a parent with a sick toddler. "He smells god awful, don't he?" one of the tent men, Barney Clark, said. He was built like a thoroughbred and had only one eye with a red patch covering the empty socket of the one he'd lost in the Great War. He took a step back and wrung his massive hands, anxiety coming off him in nearly perceptible waves. "He done pickled himself," said Anthony Duchamp, a Texan with a penchant for prostitutes and a taste for wine-soaked chewing tobacco. Even now his lip was stuffed with chaw, and a reddish-brown line of drool ran down the crease on one side of his chiseled chin. He wiped it away with a thumb, then wiped his thumb on his trousers. Mother Nurture dropped to her knees beside the sofa, said, "Sandy, baby? Hey, Sandy, you hear me, hun?" "He have a pulse?" Marianne said as she knelt beside Mother Nurture. The mystic pinched Sandoval's wrist with two fingers and a thumb, then immediately dropped it. "He's cold. Mother, he's not. God, don't let him be." "Hush, Quill. Go on. I got these." "But," I said, "go. He doesn't need to wake up to your hysteria." Cowed, Marianne stood and left, taking the tent men with her, despite their arguments that they should stay. Father Time, who'd been sitting on the edge of their bed reading War and Peace when the tent men brought Sandoval in, rose and went to his wife's side, saying, "Can I do anything?" I I don't know." She put two fingers to Sandoval's throat and sought a pulse. It came, but only just a sporadic rhythm she knew to be bradycardia. He's alive, but he won't be for long unless I can get his heart rate up. Should I get the car? For what? She asked in a flustered bark. I can drive him to the hospital. We take care of our own. You know that. Understood. Father Time fell into silence. If she needed his assistance, she would ask for it. Sandy, baby, please. Papers she'd studied. Even a doctor was a civilian when it came to family, and she was, alas, no trained physician. In the end, she did the only thing she could think to do. Mother Nurture got to her feet, balled her fists at her side, and stomped with all her soul, saying, Wake up! Sandoval shot upright, gasping, choking, his eyes wide and bloodshot, before he flopped back to the cushions, lifeless once again. Mother Nurture stomped again, harder this time, and Father Time felt the concussion from toes to temple. He staggered back and sat down hard on the edge of their mattress. I said, Wake up, Doc! Sandoval didn't sit up this time, but his chest hitched, and he sucked in an impressive lungful of air. He released it a second later in a shuddering exhalation that reeked of cheap whiskey. After that, Sandoval's breathing settled into a steady rhythm. Mother Nurture dropped, cross-legged, to the floor in the middle of the cabin car and put her face in her hands. Father Time went to her and sat on the carpet beside her. He snaked an arm around her shoulders and held her while she cried. He's finally done it, she said. The stupid old goat drank himself to death. I know, he said. He's a stubborn old bastard, but he's like an uncle to me, to all of us. He's family. I know. How do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? She asked in a meek voice. You don't, he said. They can only save themselves. They sat with Sandoval all the rest of that night, and in the wee hours of the morning, Father Time brought his wife a joint, saying, You need some rest. I'll stay with him. She nodded slowly and took the joint from him. He lit it for her with a wooden match and helped her off the floor and into bed, where she lay, smoking and quietly crying. Father Time barely knew Sandoval. The conductor kept more to himself than any other member of their carnival. But he had grown fond of the man by proxy, hearing others tell stories of Sandy or Duck or whatever other loving nickname the storyteller had for him. He knew Sandoval didn't like being called Duck, so he refrained, but that didn't stop other people from using the name. Father Time considered himself lucky that no one but his wife knew his dead name, the name his mother had given him. The cabin, with both doors and the picture window closed, soon filled with a thin haze, and Father Time numbed, his mind melting into a warm pool at the base of his skull, while the rest of him became energized. He'd grown used to their special blend of marijuana over the years, but even the smallest amount of smoke invigorated him. Fortunately, the weed had the exact opposite effect on his wife, and soon she had placed the burned down roach in the ashtray on the nightstand beside their bed and drifted to sleep, her breathing whistling softly as she snored. Only seconds after Mother Nurture fell asleep, Sandoval's eyes fluttered, and the man came awake all at once, coughing like a pneumonia patient. The hell is all this? Sandoval barked between coughs. Glad you could join us, Sandy, said Father Time. Father? Sandoval said, waving weed smoke from his face. Father, that you? Yeah, Sandy, it's me. You had us scared for a minute. Thought you'd finally decided to leave us. Oh, Sandy ain't going nowhere. Oh, Sandy weren't going nowhere. No one wants me. Sandoval sat up. He twisted and allowed his legs to drop over the edge of the cushions. He wiped at his face and met Father Time's eyes. What happened to me? I think you about near died this time. A bottle might have had something to do with it, I reckon. You ain't gonna preach to me, is you? If you are, I might as well go back to dying. Hell. Father Time glanced over his shoulder, then back to Sandoval, said, Listen, Sandy, I don't give a good goddamn if you want to drink yourself to death. That's your business. But had you seen what you put her through? Father Time hitched a thumb over his shoulder. I think your tone would change. Well, Sandoval's voice trailed off. Then, anyway, I feel fine as wine now, so y'all can stop your belly aching. Yeah, you look as spry as a newborn chick. Go to hell. Sandoval sighed at length and wiped his face again. I'm, I, yes, said Father Time. I'm sorry I scared y'all. I, I'm real sorry I scared her. She been nothing but good to old Sandy, and I don't reckon she deserves worrying over me when I ain't even worried over my own damn self. I'd agree with that, said Father Time, no judgment in his voice. You know, ain't no one talked to me like that before, like you's talking to me now. How so? You agreeing about my faults and such. Ain't nobody ever done that when I'm down on myself. They just say, it gonna get better, Sandy, and all that nonsense, or it ain't your fault, Sandy, or other such bullcrap. Ain't nobody talked to me like a man till you, boss. I ain't one to lie to someone. You killing yourself is your own business. But how you killing yourself makes her feel is my business. Like I said, you can do what you want. But she doesn't deserve to see you like this. Them's just the facts. We ain't never talked this much. Not in all the years you've been with us. Never had the cause to. Until now, said Sandoval. Father Time smiled. Until now. I care about her, you know? She's like a daughter to me, especially after Jaime done up and died. You took his place, and I reckon that's all right, but she's still like my little girl. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for no one to love me, but she done it anyway. She was the only person there when I needed her all these years, and God damn it. Truth be told, since we telling it like it is, man to man, I hate her for it. Father Time waited for the man to continue. You know what it's like to not have anyone? To be all alone when you surrounded by breathing folk? Been that way all my gall darn life, it has. Just old Sandy, getting along with his get along, driving my train, drinking my hooch, just waiting to die. You reckon you ever felt that way? No, I can't say that I have. Didn't figure so. Sandoval wiped his face. She ever tell you about my mother? She don't talk about people unless they're right in front of her, and that's not her way. Reckon I knew that. Even if I didn't note it, I would have assumed as much. She's the best person I ever did know, Father. The pure T best. She don't think of herself, not ever. She just thinks of others. What kind of angel loves a failure is all's I'm asking. What kind of angel? Father Time allowed the question to marinate, then, the smartest man I ever knew used to say, God doesn't make mistakes. Sandoval laughed sadly. If there is a God, I reckon he's the one who done made me. And I ain't nothing anyone would call a success. Father Time considered this, then, failure is in the eye of the beholder, Sandy. I guess what I'm trying to say is, we are what we want to be, even if we don't think we want to be that thing. Something to think on, I'd say. Sandoval nodded. This smoke's making me all mushy. You seem to be feeling better, though. Yeah, I am. Sandoval frowned. Ain't that something? Sandoval needed help if he was going to kick his curse, but that's what family was for. A few days later, Mother Nature, Father Time, Peter, and Mary Ann gathered in the caboose while Hank went and got Sandoval from the engine compartment. Hank returned with Sandoval in tow, and the look on Sandoval's face spoke plenty before he uttered his first word. He glanced at each of them in turn and sighed, wiped his face, then flopped down onto Uncle Jaime's old claw-footed, crushed velvet wing-back chair. He rubbed at his eyes with the insides of his wrists before finally looking up at them with haunted eyes. This about my drinking, I suppose. We're worried about you, Sandy, Peter said, and it was not lost on Sandoval that the tattooed man had chosen to call him Sandy instead of Duck. Sandoval still hadn't gotten used to the artwork that covered Peter's face, an orange and green scene of flowers with thorny brambles stemming from the corners of his mouth and eyes. If he looked at Peter too long, he could almost see the vines moving, just barely, but figured it was nothing but Peter's facial muscles twitching here and there. I've been worried about myself, truth be told. Sandoval expelled another lengthy breath. I reckon it's time, but I'd be a lying fool if I said I weren't scared. I'm frightened plumb to death, I am. We're going to try something, said Mother Nature in a kind, patient voice. We'll make this as easy as humanly possible for you. All we want you to do is try. Do or do not, muttered Marianne. There is no try. What's that? Sandoval said. Never mind. It'll be a long time before that one makes sense. You spook me when you do that, and I'm already spooked enough, so I ask you, kindly, please stop. Sorry, said Marianne. I don't always know when I'm doing it. Sandoval, focused on Mother Nature, said, So, what y'all got in mind? We're going to keep you high as a kite in a windstorm for the next week, said Father Time. Huh? Sandoval's brow creased. Who's going to drive the train? I am, said Hank. You get your rest, and I'll treat the old girl like the love of my life. I ain't got nothing to do between stops, so I can drive during downtime and work the wheel on location, no problem. I don't know. She don't respond well to Sandy, said Mother Nature. You can make all the excuses in the world, but we don't care to listen to them. It's decided. It has to be done. Or else? Sandoval asked. It wasn't a challenge, only honest curiosity. Or else, Hank will have to take over the conducting from here on out. The hell he will! Sandoval barked. So much for that honest curiosity. It's the way it's going to be, Sandy, said Father Time sternly. What happens if you pass out or, God forbid, die while we're on the tracks? Who'd know? Who'd stop us? You're putting everyone in danger every time you step to the controls. This ends now. Either you can drink yourself to death, or you can drive this train. You can't do both. No, you're going to listen. We don't want Hank to tank it over for you. That's the truth. We want you to do your job safely. So we're going to help you beat the drink, and then you'll be allowed to return to your duties. This is a goddamn mutiny, mumbled Sandoval. Then, for heaven's sakes, when do we start? Right now, said Mother Nature, and passed the man a joint. Hank will take your bunk in the engine, after a good cleaning, I should add, and you'll take Hank's in the tent man's sleeper car. All the reading I've done on the subject says your withdrawals should ease some after 3 days, and be mostly gone after 7. You'll always want it, said Marianne. But it'll get easier and easier not to drink as the weeks and months pass by. You're going to beat this, Sandy. Your cards tell you that, huh? Said Sandoval. No, Marianne said honestly. I just believe in you. We all do. Even me, said Peter. And for Sandoval, Peter's belief in him meant the most. You ain't so gall darn awful, Paper. I'm sorry I done gave you so much grief over the years. You're a nasty drunk, Peter said, but before Sandoval could protest, Peter added, But you're part of this family, and I love you despite your problems. I don't like what you do or how it makes those I care about feel, but I want to see you beat this thing. I know that somewhere in that bird chest of yours, there's a heart. You've been drowning it, but it's there. Yeah, well, you're an asshole, but at least you're an honest asshole. Sandoval stood and stuck out his hand. Peter took and shook it. Now off sugar, said Mother Nurture. Ye settled in Hank's bunk and light up. We'll take care of the cleaning of yours and discarding the bottles we find. If I ask you where your secret stash is, are you going to tell me true? Or do we have to tear the train apart? Sandoval grunted, then there's 3 bottles under my mattress. 1 under the floorboard with an S carved into it, and 3 more in the mess car, above the cooktop. My sherry bottles? Marianne asked incredulously. Sorry, Quill, but that ain't sherry in them bottles. Marianne blinked. I'll be. Everyone laughed, even Sandoval. All right, the intermissions don't have subchapters, so I'm going to pause for anyone who's just joining us, because it's a good place to stop just for a second. I'm not taking a break. All right, I'm reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me. It's a new pen name. If you want to buy a copy for yourself, I will be reading the entire series here on this channel for free, but you can read it yourself, buy your own copy if you want, or if you just want to support the channel, you can buy it. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. You can buy the ebook or the paperback on Amazon. Soon to be coming to other retailers. It's just taking me a while to find a good way to distribute them, but they are coming. It is not on Kindle Unlimited because I have an investor, and he doesn't like the idea of Kindle Unlimited. Also, if you want a signed copy, you can get one from me for $30 in the US. Internationally, it's $30 plus shipping, but I have the PayPal set up at $100. It won't cost more than that, and anything that I don't use on shipping, I will refund you. Anyways, pick it up, support your boy. We getting back to it. Sandoval made the argument that he should be allowed a final nip, just a taste, before getting hung out to dry, but was quickly shot down by both Father Time and Mother Nurture. He retired to what would be his new home for the next week, possibly longer, depending on how well Mother Nurture's experimental cure worked. Hank's bunk was, Sandoval had to admit, far more comfortable and exceedingly cleaner than his own had ever been. He smoked a third of the joint Mother had given him while 3 tent men played gin rummy in the next bunk over. Anthony Duchamp and Barney Clark, both in folding chairs, seemed to be losing badly to the man on the bed. Curtis Townsend, a black man with a mound of a right shoulder that rivaled the one the hunchback of Notre Dame carried through life. Yet the defect never did keep Curtis from being one of the hardest working tent men the carnival employed. Warm and numb, Sandoval lay back on the mattress and closed his eyes. He'd never been on the wagon before, had never so much as tried to quit drinking. Drink was always there, at hand. Moonshine, mostly, these last few years, But rumor had it that prohibition might be coming to an end, and didn't that just beat all? Here he was needing to kick the hooch around the time America was pulling its head from its ass. Liquor might once again be easily accessible, and he wouldn't be able to touch a drop of it. So it goes. He woke up shortly after 1 in the morning, shaking horribly, and for a moment he thought there was something wrong with his train, that Hank had screwed the pooch and damned them all. But no, it was just his own drink-starved nervous system rebelling. A film of greasy sweat had plastered his shirt and long johns to his skin, and the smell coming off him, holy mother of God. There were worse odors than what was leaking from his pores, he was sure, but there weren't many. Maybe road-killed skunk or week-old sun-baked liverwurst. Sandoval peeled his shirt off and wrung it out, right there in the walkway of the tentman's car, and, by the look of the puddle he'd created, he figured he'd lost a good liter of moisture. How someone could lose so much water and still function was beyond him. He lay down again, relishing the cool, perspiration-damp sheets. Even though the sun hadn't been up in hours, the cabin car remained stifling hot, and Johnny Sandoval had no clue whether it was the withdrawals or the heat outside baking his brain. He tried to sleep more, failed, and wound up sitting on the edge of his bunk, teeth chattering, knees knocking, wanting nothing more than a bellyful of bourbon. He lit and smoked the remainder of the joint Mother Nature had given him, and his tremors lessened. He could only hope that the calming effects lasted until Mother Nature or Father Time brought him another one, because he couldn't take all this shaking, all this trembling loneliness, all this need. The smoke kicked in immediately, and his head soon swam inside his skull. The dark car swayed with motion, and Johnny Sandoval thought he might be sick. He won out in the end, though. His head stopped spinning, and he was able to close his eyes without the world tilting. He slept. Another 2 hours passed, and then she came for him. A soft shh, swish, swish, as if someone were sweeping the row that ran between the bunks. Sandoval hadn't heard the sound in decades, but muscle memory kicked in, and suddenly he was ramrod stiff. Couldn't have moved an inch with the aid of hydraulics. Swish, swish, swish. This ain't real, he muttered in the dark. You ain't real. Swish, swish, swish. You all right, Sandy? Asked a voice that might have belonged to Anthony Duchamp or Barney Clark or any of the other tent men. He didn't know any of them well enough to judge whose voice it was, but that didn't change the fact that just the sound of their voice, whoever they were, eased his nerves significantly. I don't, yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Say, who am I talking to? Tony? Anthony Duchamp it was then. You hear anything, Tony? Silence. Then, no, sir. I don't hear nothing but you. Good. Thanks. No problem. And now that Johnny Sandoval listened, he realized he couldn't hear anything out of the ordinary anymore either. Snores and grunts from the sleeping tent men around him, but nothing else. She had gone, for now. Mother Nature delivered 2 freshly rolled joints shortly after daylight, while Johnny Sandoval slept. She took his pulse, careful not to wake the slumbering man, and found his heartbeat elevated. But that was to be expected from what she'd read about the nature of withdrawals. He stirred while she was at his side and muttered a single, sleep-slurred word. Mommy. Mother Nature swept oily hair from Sandoval's forehead. She could only imagine of what he dreamed. What nightmarish memories plagued the man, and wanted to crawl inside his head and chase all his demons away, beat them back into the caves whence they slithered. Alas, such was not a talent of hers, and she had work to do. The train had arrived in Bighorn, Montana, and she had people to entertain. She reluctantly left Johnny Sandoval in the grip of his ghost. Madness stole over Sandoval less than 24 hours after his last drink. He roamed the tent men's sleeping car, pacing back and forth, arguing with himself and invisible hecklers. "You gotta drink," they said. "Go to hell," he shot back. "Just one drink won't hurt," they pushed. "Fuck off," he bellowed. "Gotta take your medicine, John boy." "Mommy?" Silence, then swish, swish, swish. "You ain't real," he cried. But whether the voices were real or not, Johnny Sandoval dove into Hank's bunk and hid beneath the covers, trembling, sweating, teeth chattering as the brushstrokes came and went. Swish, swish, swish. And Johnny Sandoval wept like a child, harder than he ever had as a kid, listening to the swish, swish, swish sounds as they grew closer and closer. Swish, swish, swish. He smoked and slept, slept and smoked, and evening came once more for him, carrying with it the arrival of Marianne, dressed in her lady quill robes, reeking of incense, smelling stronger than even his own musk and weed-smoked skin. "You want a bath, Sandy?" she asked the wild-eyed man. "I can bring you a bucket and some soap, and you can wash up. Or we can go to the bathing house. Hank and the boys built one just for you, right outside, but if you don't think you can make it, we'll do the bucket." I, I'd like that," he stammered, his quakes making a mumbling mockery of his speech. "You want to take a bath? Or the bucket?" "Yes," was all he could manage. Marianne glanced around, maybe for help, maybe to see what it was that Johnny Sandoval was seeing, yet saw neither. She decided on the bucket, but it became clear early on that Sandoval wasn't able to clean himself properly, so she helped, gently, pulling down his long johns, bearing him to her, and she couldn't help but notice how small he was, how inverted, as if a second belly button lay between his legs. While his manhood was nearly non-existent, his testicles were large, heavy when she lifted them to clean behind and below them. She half expected him to become aroused while her hands worked on him, but if he had, it was too little to notice. Seeing the state of him, she figured that had something to do with his aromantic response to her flesh against his. But she also knew that even uninterested men got stiff at the slightest touch. Why these thoughts should have cycled through her head as she cleaned Johnny Sandoval was anyone's guess. She ignored her curiosities and did the work required. And when she was done, the sickly old man thanked her. "Say, Sandy," she said, noticing something odd. "You been dyeing your hair?" "Mommy," the man muttered before his eyes rolled back in his head, and he was asleep. Another day and night passed, and on the third night, Sandoval was the worse for wear. He awoke screaming in the dead of night, rousing every tent man from their bunks. And like Knuckles before him, they held the thrashing, wailing man down as he cried the same word over and over again. "Mommy! Mommy! 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 Mommy!" Barney Clark fetched Mother Nurture, while Anthony Duchamp and Curtis Townsend held Johnny Sandoval down best they could. She came in, a lit joint glowing between her fingers, and blew the cannabis smoke into Sandoval's face, directing the stream into his nose every time he took a shuddering breath between wails. It took some time, but he soon calmed enough that the tent men were able to release him. "Mommy," Johnny Sandoval murmured. "Mom, he's not getting any better," said Barney Clark. "This should be the worst of it," she said. "He's just got to make it another few nights, and he'll be past it." "Lord, I hope so," said Curtis Townsend. "Me too," said Anthony Duchamp. "I need rest too." "Tony," said Curtis. "What? You ain't the one he's been chatting up at night, the mad bastard." The sun rose and the sun set, and on the fourth night, Johnny Sandoval opened his eyes to find a figure in a bathrobe drifting past his bunk. Swish, swish, swish. "Stop it," he whined, sounding like a child of no more than 5, and feeling just as frightened and unsure as he had at that young age. "Please, stop." "Time to take your medicine," said the haunting to the haunted. "I don't wanna." He shuddered in his bedclothes, clutching the edge of the sheet to his quaking chin. "I don't wanna." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. "Leave me alone," he roared. No one replied. All was silent. Johnny Sandoval got out of his bunk and checked to see if he was truly alone. Every bed was made and unmanned, and he could only imagine that the tent men were busy about their duties somewhere outside. He could go and find someone, but he didn't want to venture outside alone in his nakedness. Where were his clothes? Who'd taken his damn long johns? What day was it? What time? Where was everyone when he needed them so desperately? "Here, Johnny," said a voice from the grave, right behind him. He could feel her breath on his ear. "You have to take your medicine for Mama." "You ain't here. You ain't even real. Please, leave me alone." "You've been bad, John boy. Real bad. You need to get better. Here, take your medicine." "I ain't gonna," he growled, his fists balled at his sides. A hand that couldn't exist, that could not possibly be real, fell on his shoulder and bid him turn around. Just turn around and face her. She wasn't going to let him go, not until he took his medicine, and Johnny Sandoval felt himself turning, unwilling but turning still, turning. "Sandy?" He snapped back around, away from the presence at his back, and saw the blessed visage of Mother Nurture in full ringmaster regalia, standing in the connecting door of the sleeper car. Sandoval's knees unhinged, and he plummeted, bashing his kneecaps a good one, but the pain barely registered. He gazed up at Mother Nurture, his eyes pleading, and reached for her. She rushed to him, dropping to his level, kneeling, and embraced the trembling man. He wept against her collarbone. "She won't leave me alone," he sobbed. "I'm here now. Mother's got you." She petted the back of his soaked head, a head full of ink-black hair that had, amazingly, been salt and pepper not even 2 days ago. She knew that fear could turn hair white, but she'd never heard of it darkening it. This was strange indeed, but she shoved the thought away so that she could focus on the tormented man in her arms. What happened, Sandy? Tell me. She stroked his damp nape. She's here. I felt her hand on me. She wants me to take my medicine, but I don't wanna. I don't wanna. She's not here, baby. No one's here but us chickens, she said with a small laugh, trying to inject some levity into the heavy moment. Bok bok, she added, but Sandoval continued to weep. She's here, God damn it! He barked and pulled away. I felt her! Mother Nurture kept her hands on his shoulders, but allowed him the space between them. His eyes were feral, his muscles bunched, but she knew he wouldn't hurt her, not even in his current state. There was no way she could be certain, but she knew it all the same. Is the poison getting out of your system, Sandy? She's not here. Your mama's been dead and gone for 40 years, remember? She's buried back in Georgia. Back in Americus, right? Isn't that where you said she died? He nodded in twitchy jerks. So see? She can't be here. Ghosts aren't real. They're only real in our heads. She's nothing but memories and nightmares now, baby. I promise you. She wants me to take my medicine, he sobbed. Come on, let's get you back in bed. She helped him to his feet and into Hank's bunk, then tucked him in. She stayed with him, hoping he would soon drift back into dreamland, but he was wide awake, and he wanted to talk. I can hear her swish, 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 walking the halls. I can hear those goddamn slippers of hers. She's swish, 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 coming. But Mother Nurture couldn't hear anything aside from Johnny Sandoval as he told her all about his mother and her accursed slippers. I'd be in bed and I could hear her coming. Her slippers, they made this swish, swish, swish on the hardwood. She never did lift her feet when she walked, and I never did know if she were bringing a bottle for me to drink or that goddamn belt of hers. Would she get me drunk or would she beat me? It was like wanting to find out if I done won or lost some godforsaken sweepstakes. Every night, sometimes even in the morning, here she come, swish, 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 and I'd hide. God knew I'd hide, but she always did find me. In the closet, under the bed, in the shed out back where Daddy killed himself with his hunting rifle just to get away from the monster he'd done married. Left me all alone, the bastard. All alone, so I had to deal with her all by my damn self. But I was just a kid, goddammit. Just a kid. And shouldn't no child have to go through what she put me through. Got to the point that I'd drink, even when she didn't bring none. Then she'd whoop me for getting into her stash. She's the one who got me drinking in the first place, for Christ's sake. Here, he stopped to catch his breath, to collect his thoughts, and Mother Nurture waited quietly for him to continue. I can still hear her, Mother. Swish, 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 coming down the hall. But I don't want that goddamn medicine of hers no more. She's trying to push it on me, but I don't want to take it. He flinched, as if he could see her, and maybe he did see her now, here in the sleeper car, her feet sliding along, those slippers going swish, 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 steeling himself, bracing for the whipping crack of belt or bottle. She's dead, but she's here. She can't be here, but she's here. Can't you hear her? Swish, 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 coming. Mother Nurture stayed with Johnny Sandoval for the rest of that night. Every time he woke up, She'd smoke with him until he fell back asleep. And when morning came, so did a new Johnny Sandoval, a clear-eyed wraith, a ghost of himself, but a clear-eyed ghost all the same. But no, that wasn't quite right. This Johnny Sandoval was no ghost. If anything, he was a specter reincarnated, given a second chance, one who'd had the light of life return to his eyes, where once had lurked the angel of death, scythe raised, waiting, waiting, waiting for his chance to bring the blade down. On the morning of the 6th day, Mother Nurture went to check on Johnny Sandoval and found him not in bed with tremors, but up and playing cards with Anthony Duchamp, Barney Clark, and Curtis Townsend. And by the sound of it, Johnny Sandoval was cleaning their clocks. Not again, Curtis cried. Sandoval swept a pot of pennies from the center of the table into a pile of them by his left elbow. Anthony's, Barney's, and Curtis's piles were sorry sights to behold for sure, each one of them consisting of less than 10 coins each, although Curtis was in the most danger, with only 3 coppers left with which to bet. "Hey, fellas," Mother Nurture said with a smile. "You're looking good, Sandy." "He should be," Curtis squealed. "He's taking all our money." "Ain't nothing but some pennies tween friends, Kurt, so hush up," Sandoval said, chuckling. "Come get your conductor, Mother, or we heave him out a window," said Barney. "Ain't no windows in this bastard, no way," Sandoval said, now braying with laughter. "You see what he's become? A regular card sharp," Anthony said, but Mother Nurture saw Anthony was also smiling. Men, she thought, what a strange breed. What a strange breed, indeed. No one mentioned how youthful Johnny Sandoval had become, but Mother Nurture was sure most, if not all, had noticed. His head was covered in jet black hair, and the bald spot that had been spreading for as long as she'd known the man had completely covered with new growth. His once aged and wrinkled face was smooth and unblemished, and his eyes twinkled with childlike mischief. Even his belly, which had grown pregnant with liquor over the years, had flattened considerably. He looked better than she'd ever seen him, spry and ready to take on the world. Hank's bunk was given a thorough washing, and he was allowed to reclaim it. Johnny Sandoval had no more use for it, after all, and had returned to his beloved engine. Mother Nurture watched with a mother's pride as Johnny Sandoval patted the interior steel walls of his home, his old girl, and the tears he tried to stealthily wipe away. "I need to thank you, Mother," he said, turning to face her, moisture gleaming in the corners of his eyes. "You don't need to thank me, or anyone else for that matter. You did this. This is your victory, Sandy. All yours. I couldn't have done it without you, all of you. I owe the lot of you my life. You don't owe us anything but a ride to our next stop. You ready to go?" "Yes'm, I believe I is. Time to get this old girl running. Tear up some track, by God." "Then I will leave you to it. Oh, and Sandy?" "Yes'm." She frowned, unsure if she wanted to say what she felt the urge to say, but decided against it, saying instead, "Never mind. It's just, you look really good, is all. Fantastic, even." "I know," he cheesed broadly. "Ain't that something?" Yes, Mother Nurture agreed inwardly. It certainly was something. The train rolled on. And then, on an uncharacteristically chilly night in the fall of 1931, while they were performing in Bellevue, Nebraska, a special edition joined the carnival. Mother Nurture and Father Time were making love in her car. neither noticing the pair of incandescent eyes watching from the window in the red door, when shouting could be heard coming from the geek show, drawing their spectators' attention. The last performance of the night had been done and over with for nearly an hour, and the midway was clear of rubes, so there was no telling what was going on. Knuckles hopped down from the rear platform of Mother Nurture's car and jogged across the straw-covered midway, his hood and cloak, which he wore to keep his appearance hidden while not performing, flapping about his person. The Ferris wheel sat dark and tall and unmoving in the background, a great eye watching over all. Clay, the dwarven sword swallower extraordinaire, was outside the geek show with a bundle of cloth in his arms. Bull, the mustachioed strongman, stood beside him, staring down at the bundle with something akin to confusion, one bare paw scratching at his bald head. Knuckles pulled up, saying, "What's going on?" "You ain't gonna believe this, boss," cried Clay. "Look at here." Clay pulled back a bit of collected fabric, which was nothing but cheesecloth. Knuckles could see now that he was up close, to reveal a baby. The infant couldn't have been more than a few hours old, for it was still covered with the gory remnants of its birth. But that wasn't what drew Knuckles' attention, nor had it been what all the commotion had been about. The child only had one eye, set in the center of its bulging forehead, and a tiny outcropping of blunt horn arching up and away from its single hairless eyebrow. Knuckles could only stare in stunned disbelief as Clay said, "Someone left him under one of the chairs, out in the audience. I thought it was some lady's handbag. 'Twas a woman who sat there during our show tonight, and I thought she looked a mite odd, boss, the way she just sat there crying and holding her bag, or what I thought was a bag. And now we know why. Look at him, boss. Ain't he something? Ain't he just the most precious thing?" "We gotta show Mother," said Bull. "No," Knuckles nearly shouted. Forcing himself to relax, he said, She's busy right now. Give her some time, and we'll take it to her." "Him, boss," said Clay. "It's a him. He's got 2 horns, truth be told. See?" The dwarf laughed as he pulled the covers back farther. "I will be damned," Bull said, as if he'd never seen a penis and testicles before, despite owning both himself. Knuckles ran a scaled thumb over the babe's cheek. "Hey there, little man." "I ain't never seen a Cyclops before, boss," said Clay, his eyes full of wonder. "That's not a bad name for him," Knuckles said. "What ain't a bad name, boss?" said Clay. "Cy. Yeah. We'll call him Cy. Cy the Cyclops. Fits, don't it?" "Sure does, boss," said Clay. "So," Bull said, seemingly confused, "we gon' keep him, Nuck? We ain't even gonna look for his mama?" "If she wanted him, she wouldn't have left him. That's how I see it." "Right, boss. Good call," said Clay. "Hey," Marianne called from the flaps of her tent across the midway. "Did I hear someone hollering?" "Oh, Quill!" cried Clay. "Look at what I found!" The little man shuffled quickly toward her with his awkward bow-legged gait, Knuckles and Bull close on his heels. Clay held the babe out for her to see, but instead of simply looking, Marianne Stout scooped the baby into her own arms. I'm almost done. "Oh, Cy," she said, much to Knuckles' shock. "Where have you been?" I've been waiting for you so long. Wait, said Clay. You know him? How's she know him, boss? Knuckles laughed. Lady Quill knows all, Clay. You know that. Oh, right. She does. Must be all the lead in me diet dumbing me down, eh, boss? The sword swallower cackled. Nice to meet you, Sai, Marianne whispered to the infant. You're going to do big things, honey. Big things. Just you wait and see. Just you wait and see. And that's the end of the first intermission. We will be starting chapter 3 on Wednesday, the 12th? Yeah, Wednesday the 12th, I'll be starting chapter 3. But we are currently on page 181. And yeah. So if you are just joining us, if you've been here wondering what I'm doing, I am reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's one of my favorite parts of the books, of all the entire series, was that intermission. I loved writing it. It was a very personal section for me. And yeah, so thank y'all. I got a question before I go. I know everybody was quiet because I was reading, but I got another hour or two to spare. So would you guys like to hang out and chat after I get done with this? I will end this one because I got to upload it as an episode for next week. But if you guys want to hang around and chat, let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yo. No? Nothing? Ugh. Ooh. Ugh. Ooh, I'm stiff. And not in a good way. Oh, wait a second. I have it on top chat. Let me put it on live chat. Nope. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you, cheap Detroit Lions memes. I missed y'all. Anywho. All right, guys. So thank you for joining me. Like I said, I will be back this coming Wednesday, February the 12th, to continue reading. We'll be starting chapter 3, which is the introduction to Sai, one of my favorite characters. Yeah, Derek. Well, yeah. Oh, you want me to come back and hang around? It don't matter to me. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and end this. I'll go take a break. When I come back, I'll upload a hangout and chat. I'll give it a different title because, like I said, I got to post this. Hey, sorry I missed the stream. Just got home from work. You didn't miss it. I'm coming back. This was just a reading stream. I don't talk much during it. Well, I narrate, but I don't talk to chat much. But if you want to come back in about, I don't know, 15 minutes, I'll be here to hang out and chat. So you really didn't miss anything. You can always rewatch this later. Anywho, but bye for now. I'll be back in about 15 minutes and we can hang out and we can bullshit and all that other good stuff. But until next time, I have been E, you've been you. This has been another episode of The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. If you want to buy the book, it's down there in the doobly-doo. You can get one from Amazon, either the paperback or the ebook. More stores are coming. I'm working out distribution issues. If you want a signed copy, those links are down there also. For those of you that want to hang out, I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Bye-bye.